Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Tech4Eva Conference. It's my great pleasure to open the session in the name of EPFL Innovation Park and send our warmest greetings to all of you who are connected with us from different parts of the world. Tech4Eva is a joint initiative between Groupe Mutuel and EPFL Innovation Park with the aim to empower, to equip, and to bring together life science innovators and entrepreneurs with healthcare professionals and forward-looking investors to revolutionize the women's health and the technology. About a year ago, when the topic of women's health was brought to us by colleagues from Groupe Mutuel, we worked out a plan to tackle this underdeveloped and underinvested sectors. That plan is Tech4Eva. It is a FemTech startup accelerator specialized in technology in women's health. It is also a catalyst to raise awareness to help startups to grow faster in the sectors, at the same time to foster an ecosystem to improve women's health and technology. This first years of experience is extremely rich, both at program side, also at individual side. So when we're looking back, there are many key factors that contribute to the successful launch of these initiatives. Among them, the creativity, the enthusiasm, and the determination of the FemTech startups that join to our program. Their deep knowledge and industrial know-how in some specific sectors of health and also technology. Their willingness to share their experience and to share their network and know-how and to make things happen. So this is why a year later today, on this occasion of the closing ceremony of the FemTech Startup Accelerator, we invite our startup founders to come to share their knowledge about the FemTech market and its newest development. They who have worked very hard to identify opportunities in the market and have been constantly measuring themselves against the fierce competition in the world, they are the best person to provide us with an overview about this FemTech landscape and to talk about the challenges as well as the opportunities. So, here is the agenda of today. In addition to the talks of our Tech4Eva startups, you will be able to listen to the panel discussion of the two female executives from EPFL Innovation Park and from Groupe Mutuel. As well as you will listen to the fascinating story of Clue, the fertility tracking app that has changed the life of many women. I would also take this opportunity to talk about the outcome of the accelerators and give you some insight about the outlook. The agenda will be enriched by the pitches of our 14 FemTech startups, so as to give you an overview of what happens in the market and the newest innovations. So to kick off today's events, I would like to invite you to listen to a short speech of the Swiss State Secretary of Education, Research and Innovation.
It is a particular honor to open today's event, providing an important look into FemTech and women's health. Equality of opportunities is a cornerstone value for Switzerland. In fact, the concept is written in our constitution. We have robust protections against all major forms of discrimination, including gender. And we take seriously the idea that all people in Switzerland should have the same chances to succeed. Increasingly, Switzerland and the world recognize that keeping women healthy and empowering them to take control of their health is crucial to equity. While Switzerland has taken some critical steps in the right direction, further improvements are still possible and remaining challenges must be tackled. Female subjects have historically been excluded from toxicological or biomedical research for a variety of reasons. Also, women react differently to drugs than men. The gender factor is still often not taken into account in research. Events like the one today help shape our understanding of women's health and FemTech and bring us closer to building the ecosystem that will best support the health of all people fairly.
Now, I would like to leave the animation of this morning to our two moderators, Cynthia from EPFL Park and Xenia from Groupe Mutuel. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Lan. Thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. And welcome, everybody. We're here. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. We would love to see your faces, so can we please ask you to turn your cameras on? There we go. We have a few there. Hello. Hi, everybody. We're still in the virtual world of Zoom conferences, so thank you all for showing your faces, and thank you for the over 450 people that registered to join us here today. Thank you for sharing the morning with us. Thank you, and it is now my great pleasure to introduce our panel discussion on importance of FemTech and invite on the stage Ursula Osterle, who is Vice President of Innovation at EPFL, and Sophie Rova, who is a Director at Groupe Mutuel. And I remind you that you can ask questions to our panelists by using Slido. So you have the QR code, or you can also use the link. And if we have time, we'll try to take them in the end. Thank you very much and welcome. Probably first question everyone wants to know: two big players, EPFL, Groupe Mutuel, why FemTech? Sophie?
So we all know that more than 50% of the population are women, but actually only 4% of health investment are specifically dedicated to women. So in other words, we are clearly not doing enough for women's health, and this has to change. Women, for example, have long been underrepresented in clinical trials, and this has a huge impact on their health. It impacts the way diagnostic, investigation, treatment, or prognostics are made for women. And there are a lot of medicines, there are a lot of treatments that don't take enough into account the specificities of women's health. And we also see that some women's health topics are still taboo. Menopause, menstrual health, fertility, these are topics that are still taboos in the society, but also at work. And it implies great difficulties for women. And I really think that FemTech can help solve this problem. And this is why we are supporting initiatives like Tech4Eva, because at Groupe Mutuel, 50% of our customers are women. And we really think that technology and innovation should also be at the service of all these women.
That's very good to hear. Thank you very much, Sophie. Ursula, your perspective?
Okay, so I have two perspectives. One from being a woman. There's a major difference between men and women. In women, due to the constantly changing hormone cycles, no 2 days are the same, okay? Which has an impact on sleep, on mood, on energy, on how you digest food, on everything. And so I think we have to take this into account, that there's a constant fluctuation and that this impacts your day-to-day lifestyle in a way. So there's a clear need. On the other side, I think we also need to start to think not only of sick care, where we're really intervening in medical issues, but really start to think in well care, or how do we get through life in a better way. From an EPFL perspective, we have a responsibility to get this research out for the benefit of society. And EPFL is a gold mine on the one side of technology and on the other side of life science, biology, chemistry, physics, health in it. And it's a combination of the two that is really interesting, because as we look into solutions to address these problems that we just mentioned, you need to take tech and science, hence it's called FemTech. Okay, it's not just tech. The AI doesn't know what to do. The AI needs to have the intelligence of the life science research. And EPFL is very well positioned for this. But to get it out, we need this phase of exploring, of putting it together. And that's why we need an accelerator. And then on the other side, we need the industry to pick it up. So this combination of accelerator is a great platform where research can meet industry to make sure we can develop solutions.
Thank you, Ursula. I think I would speak for everybody if I say that it's great to see two players coming together to advance, progress in the area of women's health. More specifically, if we speak, FemTech is a huge field, embracing a lot of technologies. If we speak about the perspectives of FemTech, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know who would like to start.
I think, and I'm really convinced, that FemTech will become mainstream. And for that, we really need a cultural change. This cultural change has already started. Initiatives like Tech4Eva contribute to this cultural change. And we also see that the needs of our customers are evolving. We see that there is a growing concern and interest among our customers, especially our corporate customers, about prevention, about health management, about work-life balance. So there are customer needs, and where there are customer needs, there is a market, and this market will grow in the next few years. It will become mainstream, and I think it is also a very good thing because it will bring more equality, because health is also an important factor of equality, and the whole economy and society will benefit from this.
Anything to add on that, Ursula?
I think the change of mentality is really a key issue. And then we cannot underestimate how broad this is, because it really goes in all aspects of health, even how women consume medication, or how medication has an impact on the health or the well-being of a female is very different to the male. So it is really broad. But ultimately, as we go more and more into personalized health, this is really at an individual level. And there's going to be a lot of trial and error and testing. Okay, we don't have the science with the complexity of biology. We don't have that understanding yet. And I think this is where data solutions, AI, can help each person, each woman, find its own path as we iterate and test, because it's through this testing and learning, okay? And as you change, as you go through pregnancy, all those things will not be true anymore. You'll be in a different situation. So it's a constant mixture between hard facts, common understanding on models of, and the learning by trial and error. I mean, we cannot underestimate that part of it too.
I could not agree more. I mean, data will help us get more information about patient journeys in pregnancy as well as in fertility. It's very important. As I already mentioned, FemTech embraces a lot of solutions and technologies. Maybe you have some favorite ones that you like, some examples of companies that maybe tient au cœur.
So, I think all startups that are participating in Tech4Eva have great ideas to improve women's health. If I had to pick one or two, I like this startup that develops a digital platform to help women to improve their self-confidence. Because I think women that have more self-confidence will also have more chances of success in their career. And I think we really need more women with a successful career. And as the only woman in an executive committee, I can confirm, I would like to have more women in executive jobs. And I think if we improve health, we will also improve the chances of women to increase their career path. And another startup that I really like is this startup who had created a new generation of medical instruments that eliminate pain and bleeding by some gynecological procedures, because I suffered myself from this pain, and I think a lot of women do. And so I think there are really a great number of great ideas in this program, and all ideas are really good ideas to improve women's health.
What about you, Ursula?
I love the broad scope we have. Okay, I think it's very hard to choose a few startups because of the broad scope. And if you look in this accelerator, we had 110 submissions, and they cover topics from prevention, well-being, pregnancy, fertility, menopause, menstruation, and incontinence. If you look concretely, what I find fascinating is we have startups that look at electronic bracelet to tackle hot flashes, sensors to strengthen the pelvic floor, rapid tests for detection, cell therapy to regenerate damaged muscles, artificial intelligence for better heart disease diagnosis, which is a common issue with women. So it's really the broad scale. Now we have 3 from EPFL, which is interesting. It's really high tech. I mean, magnetic resonance that you can use for non-invasive embryo screening, or medical devices that you can use during surgery of fetus. So it's there. You can really see the complexity of some very high tech with some kind of science or medical intervention versus other things which address more mental health. I think we cannot underestimate the impact on mental stability and mental health through the constant hormone changes women go through.
It's great to see when precision engineering and technology addresses such important and at the same time quite emotional, aspects, such as pregnancy and things like that. 2 of the startups were mentioned, Ember Labs and the Soleil, which is the digital health mental app. We will have opportunity to hear their presentations later regarding some trends and topics in their field. Women's health. Such a complex and broad subject. It's not only hormones, it's also the societal factors, it is so much more. Is there maybe one aspect of this complex topic that you find particularly important or fascinating? Ursula, maybe we can start with you.
I mean, there are many aspects, I think, as Sophie also mentioned, on the career aspect. There are many women who not pursue a career because of the toll female health has on them, because in a way you are almost dependent on the mood of the day. You never know the next day how it's going to be. So you have to adapt, and then you have to compensate for this. And so as you go into very high-performing careers where you're expected to deliver like men, all the time, and there's no space for this fluctuation. So I think we kind of need to bring a little bit of the humanness back into this, which also brings a lot of suffering in silence that women have, because you can't talk about it, you can't show. So I think there is which is interesting, because when you talk to men at home, they know it, okay? So at home there's tolerance for all of this, but at work there's less tolerance. So it's really ironic. But I think there is an education change that needs to come with this for everyone to be more like they are, okay? Because even men, they will go through phases where they have issues at home, or they go through phases where maybe health issues, and there too, we have to have more tolerance for this. We're not perfect every day, and compensate for fluctuations.
Thank you. Anything to add to that?
I totally agree with what Ursula said. I think this link between health and career is very obvious, and I think I would not be today where I am professionally without a good health, and I think that's the same for you. So it's really important that we improve women's health so that we also improve their career chances.
But there still remains taboos, right? Especially in the workplace for women regarding many topics. How concretely could we overcome them? I mean, you mentioned awareness, maybe some other ideas that you'd like to share, or some things that have been maybe implemented.
So awareness, this is the right word. We really need, I think, to talk about these topics. We need to talk about it with friends, with family, but also in the society and also at work. And this is why, for example, at Groupe Mutuel, we have created an internal club where our employees, not only women, all of our employees can learn more about women health, can learn more about FemTech, about the startups that are participating in the program, and where they can share their ideas. And I think it is really important to contribute to this cultural change that is needed to improve women's health. So talk about it, talk about it, talk about it. And the second thing is work together. We know that no one can solve the problem alone. We really need to work all together, to have all the players around the table if we want to succeed in improving women's health. And that's exactly what we do at Tech4Eva. We work all together to improve women's health.
I think there's also an element of generational, because the older people were told it is taboo and you don't talk about it, and so we have to respect also that there's a cultural element in it. If you look at the younger generation, they're much more conscious of their well-being. They put more effort, also more resources into their lifestyle and well-being. So I think for them, they're much more open on these topics in it, and then often also more involved in the whole pregnancy, in the small child caring, and so. So I think there's an aspect also of that, which everything takes time. At the moment where you want culture change, mindset change, it just takes a lot of years. But yes, we have to talk about it. We have to, and yet not too personal, because I've heard situations where men say, "Oh, we don't want to know," okay, which is fair. Or other women don't want to know. Everybody, which is fair. I mean, everybody has a culture, and then there's cultural diversity. We cannot underestimate in different cultures, and as we're more and more international groups, we also have to respect cultural diversity. So it's a long journey, but hey, this is a great initiative to support this journey. And we're counting on all of you to support us.
I could not agree more, and I think what you managed and we managed to create with Tech4Eva is really the community, and not only, I mean, Tech4Eva goes much beyond the acceleration program, and I think this is really great. I'm not sure that we had any questions on Slido? Not that I can see. I guess people still need a little bit more coffee to wake up. So I guess we can close it. Let's continue talking about FemTech during the conference. I would like to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you soon. I think it was a very inspiring panel discussion, and now it's time to move to our first keynote speaker. It is my great pleasure to introduce Audrey Tsang, who is the co-CEO of Clue, one of the most famous and most revolutionary period tracking apps, and Audrey is going to tell us a little bit more about the journey of this FemTech startup.
Hello and welcome. I'm Audrey Singh, co-CEO at Clue, and I am delighted to share Clue's story and my journey with Clue with you today. As I read through the inspiring Tech4Eva participant list of founders and innovators tackling so many crucial problems in female health, from sexual health to pre-eclampsia to menopause, just to name a few of the ones I read, I only wish I could be there in person to connect with all of you in the FemTech community. When Clue launched in 2013, the whole topic of menstruation was taboo. How would people react if we used the words period, bloody discharge, or cervical fluids? So when Clue's co-founder, Ida Tin, coined the term FemTech, it was to give a name to a category that we didn't yet know how to talk about. So much, thankfully, has changed since then, and it's incredible to see the growth and power of this sector today. And it's amazing to be speaking at a conference dedicated to bringing together a community for the exchange of ideas about FemTech. Now, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, and short of helping to teach sex ed when I was 17 in my high school, I have no background in female health. But what drew me to this work, and perhaps what drew all of you, is a recognition that there is still a lack of access for women and people with cycles to the knowledge, tools, and care necessary to live full and healthy lives. Everyone's got a story about their or their loved one's female health journey, whether that's the pain of puberty, a difficult to diagnose health condition, a challenging pregnancy, or finding support during perimenopause. And yet until recently, so little was known about many of these topics, and so little had been done to help people understand and navigate these topics. I believe, and I'm sure you do as well, that FemTech And the companies that we're all building will change this. So a little bit of background on Clue. Clue was co-founded by Ida Tin and Hans Raffoff in 2012. Ida personally wanted and needed a tool to understand her menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health. The Clue app was launched in 2013 to provide educational content, period tracking, and insights to solve just this problem. The vision was then, and is still now, for everyone with a cycle to be empowered to make good choices for themselves and live full lives in tune with their biology. And our mission was and is to provide trustworthy information, data-driven tools, and emotional support. That one's important for everyone with a menstrual cycle as an empathetic, scientific companion from the first period to the last period. As Clue has evolved to become a medical device, now with the first and only FDA-cleared all-digital birth control feature, we also honor our users' trust by holding ourselves accountable to a high standard of care and quality controls. So to achieve our mission, we want Clue to be a delightful companion that reliably educates and empowers people with regard to their menstrual, sexual, and reproductive health and well-being. And we want to create a space in which our users can closely observe their own authentic experience, unhindered by shame or restrictive norms. To be successful in this, we really must address two worlds: the worlds of biology, science, and healthcare, and the world of subjective experience, emotion, and identity. Today, Clue has expanded into a female health platform. In addition to the app growing, we also have a well-researched and relatable web resource called helloclue.com and a wide range of research collaborations with the likes of the Kinsey Institute, Stanford, and Columbia University, all with the purpose of increasing what we know and what we can do to forward female health. And the purpose of Clue and all the resources we've created around it is to educate people who menstruate about the science of their bodies. This community we've built and this discourse that we're involved in is key to ending taboos and helping people who menstruate feel that they're not alone in this experience, despite the ongoing shame, taboo, and embarrassment surrounding it. And a person can decide, for example, that they need to go see their doctor because they think something might be wrong with their cycle. Or over time, through tracking, people can feel reassured that something they are going through is a normal part of their body's rhythm. Self-knowledge is power. Clue provides the tools people need to build that knowledge and utilize it. When Ida Tin, our co-founder, began envisioning the future of Clue, she threw around the term companion, and I think that still rings very true. Clue has always wanted to be a companion that accompanies you through your entire female reproductive life. To deliver on this problem, Clue had to not only help people with cycles understand when their next period will be, major use case for us, but how all the symptoms they experience tie into their health goals, whether they are trying to conceive, pregnant, managing conditions, or avoiding pregnancy. We want Clue to feel like a companion, as caring as a sibling and as knowledgeable as an OBGYN. And we want Clue to be there like a companion, deeply useful for every part of your reproductive life. Clue has grown and learned so much since its founding. It's been my privilege to be a part of that journey and grow alongside it. It's unsurprisingly not what I expected, but I've also learned so much. I joined Clue over 3 years ago as their chief product officer. Originally from San Francisco and having never been to Berlin, I decided to visit after a 90-minute phone call with Ida. Clue's vision and mission already deeply resonated with me. But what I fell in love with was their spirit of innovation. It underlay not just the products that Clue created, but also how it went about it. Clue's culture is relational and collaborative rather than hierarchical or competitive. It's both humble and inspiring and challenging and safe. It's not surprising to me that this is the culture required to break taboos and emotionally hold people through their personal and vulnerable health experiences. In a world where there is so much pressure to keep up or to be normal and so much shame and worry when what goes on in our bodies often doesn't feel normal, I had found a company with the courage and vision to do everything differently. from not wearing shoes in our meeting room to radical vulnerability and transparency in our communications to radical transparency and innovation in our business model and what we put out in the world. I had two major focus areas when I started at CPO. The first was monetizing our Clue app. Having spent most of Clue's first years focused on growing the user base, it was time to build a sustainable business. It was a challenge to build that monetization muscle, and it was also a challenge to design a culture that was both purpose-driven and performance-driven. During this time, we developed a deep understanding of our customer journey, from awareness to conversion, to engagement to retention, and how to optimize it. But we also had to get really clear on our values in order to walk that line between purpose and profit. That we would still never, and our values are that we will still never sell our users' data, and we will still always care and earn their trust. The second area of focus was readying us to launch Clue Birth Control, a Class 2 regulated software as a medical device. The data was there. 500 million women in the world still don't have access to birth control that works for them. Efficacy, side effects, and cost were the biggest factors in birth control choices when women had access. So we set out to launch a simple, over-the-counter fertility awareness-based method for contraception that was evidence-based and FDA cleared, but with no hormones and no need to take your temperature or do something every day that you are likely to forget. With our users' trust, safety, and satisfaction in mind, we leveraged quality standards and regulatory compliance, particularly like the rationality of what it means to be a quality managed medical device to strengthen ultimately what we do for our users. So not only was much of this time of readying us for launch about building the product, it was also about transforming us into a quality and safety-oriented culture. I'm immensely proud of the team 3 years later for having built both a growing subscription revenue business and having begun rollout of Clue Birth Control in the US. I'm immensely proud of the team 3 years later for having built a growing subscription revenue business and begun the rollout of Clue Birth Control in the US. So much has happened in the world the last almost 2 years, and so much has happened at Clue. In the beginning of this year, we also made the decision to transition leadership. As you noticed, I'm co-CEO and not co-CPO anymore. Having received FDA clearance for Clue Birth Control, Clue was entering a new chapter of their journey. While science and care had always been at the core of what we did, we made the choice to double down. With regulatory clearance, we would now pave the path for being not only a loved consumer app, but also a trusted medical device. It was Ida's idea that Carrie Walter, Clue's former general counsel, and I share the role of CEO, representing and uniting the consumer product perspective, my perspective, and the regulatory perspective necessary for being a quality managed medical device. We hear stories about people being helped by Clue all the time. I love what Clue does for the world, and I love how we do it. Becoming co-CEO felt like a personal responsibility that I needed to take on so that I could help make a genuine difference. I also knew intuitively and from experience that Carrie would make a wonderful partner, and that collaborating in partnership was how I wanted to lead, how I wanted to make decisions, and how I wanted to make sure the decisions were refined before they were made, and how I also wanted to be supported with honesty, respect, and care that is so much a part of Clue's culture. I'm very excited for what's next for Clue. And for those same reasons, I'm also excited for what's next in FemTech. I believe FemTech will be key in solving many meaningful problems facing women and people with cycles today. And I'll call out two trends that I'm particularly excited to see play out. First, greater personalization. For the first time with period tracking, we have a record of a person's individual menstrual experience alongside the wider population's experience. When before, all we could really do was take a big data set, if we even had that data set, and average it out. Now, data like this allows us to personalize insights and recognize patterns for the individual. And even if they have a 1 in a million condition, they'll still be part of a cluster of at least a couple of other people in the world that are going through that same experience and can benefit from sharing that knowledge or sharing that experience or sharing ways to navigate that experience. FemTech allows us to deliver solutions and emotional support to each of these people, individualized and personalized to their bodies, needs, and goals. Second, FemTech is going to drastically change accessibility. And with 78% of the world owning a smartphone, these pocket-sized supercomputers are going to make personalized care accessible and affordable to people everywhere. This is so much a part of why I started doing this in the first place that I am so very excited for what's going to happen in the next very few years. For this to happen, we will need to rethink our systems and our models for payment and prescription. But undoubtedly, I think there are ways, as long as we're dedicated to building what our users need, building what's going to take care of our users, and finding ways to innovate on the systems that we operate within. And now, reflecting on Clue's journey and my journey, both as CPO and co-CEO, I'll leave you with my 3 learnings. First, care for the user. Care deeply about that user. Want the best for them. Trust in their resilience. Trust in their ability to make great choices for themselves. But build things that solve the problems that really matter to them. Respect what is theirs and be transparent about your business model. Second, earn trust. Trust is paramount. For us, that's seen in our commitment to being empathetic, evidence-based, and quality-driven. It's in our promise to never sell our users' data, and it's in how we speak to our users regardless of where they come from or how they identify. To have an impact in health, trust is a promise that cannot be broken, and it's the only way that we can connect the healthcare system, let's say, with actual individuals needing that care. And finally, embrace different, whether that's in the solutions you create or how you create them. Being different is how we innovate, obviously. So innovate on company culture, innovate on the system, innovate to bring together the ecosystem, innovate on leadership. And speaking of leadership, do it together if you can. Highly recommended. Find the most different but complementary collaborators and embrace them. So in conclusion, I'm so excited that we are all together imagining a different world. What you're all doing, probably no one has done before. So embrace that, revel in that. Don't do it someone else's way because you're not doing something that ever existed before. Do it your way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Audrey, for conveying all these passions from San Francisco, thousands of miles from here. I think this has been some incredible findings and suggestions that can inspire innovators, not only here in Switzerland, but all over the world. I think it's amazing what Clue is doing for community, going way beyond just digital app and making real transformation in healthcare.
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. And before we move on, I just want to take a quick 5-minute break.
Welcome back to the Tech4Eva Conference. It is now my great pleasure to welcome back on stage Lanzu Jie from EPFL Innovation Park, who is the Program Director of Tech4Eva, and she will now give us some highlights from the first edition of Tech4Eva program, and will also share some information about the progress that was made by the startups. Thank you, Lan.
Thank you. Hello again. Since the launch of Tech4Eva program on International Women's Day early this week, and as the first FemTech accelerator in continental Europe, Tech4Eva has got a lot of attention, both from media and also from startup ecosystems. In less than 6 months, and in the third quarter of this year, Tech4Eva is already figured as one of the major players in the global FemTech landscape. And so this is also because not only about its concept, but it's mainly because all it has delivered within the 9 months. Here are some numbers. From its launch, for the first call, we got 110 applications from 25 countries. 60% of the founders are women, and 33 startups come from Switzerland. We select 15 most promising FemTech startups that are either have a proven business model and looking for scaling, or have raised a significant amount of funding and in the later stage of validations. We also added one cohort with the promising early stage startups that are still refining their business model and seeking for clinic validations. These 2 cohorts went through distinct programs, and they met each other through the community workshop and international roadshows. So overall, 20 experienced industrial experts in life science and also in high-tech startups, business coaches join us as a mentor to provide support to the startups. 23 trainers are appointed to give in-depth, focused workshops. These people are from well-known corporate such as Fearing, Mac, the Biopharm, etc. They're also from quite established FemTech startups, as well as industrial clusters. So in less than 9 months, 17 public-private workshops were organized to tackle different topics and also to improve business skill of the startup founders. 8 CEO brainstorming sessions were organized where 2 CEOs each time were challenged by their peers and to get feedback and suggestions. 4 focus groups were organized to tackle the unmet needs in prevention, in fertility, in pregnancy, as well as in menopause. Under the leadership of very engaging animators, a 15 overall meetup was organized to discuss new opportunity of innovation in these sectors. To help startups to develop their business internationally and to increase their visibility for potential customer and investors, 4 international roadshow was organized with the support of our international roadshow partners. We organized these events in Zurich, in Boston, in London, and in Tokyo. And during this roadshow, the startup founder has got familiar with the healthcare system of the country, and also they get to know about the constraints and conditions of the market entry, and also got a lot of contacts with their potential customers and investors. So here are some statistics that we collected from the survey that were made with our 30 startup founders. While being asked what are the most what is the most significant progress during the Tech4Eva program, 36% indicated that this is about increase of their business know-how, and 29% saying this is the network that have been built with their peer startups and other startups outside of programs. In average, each startup in the Tech4Eva program had about 10 to 20 relevant contacts. And overall, they have had 104 talks with potential investors. So as a result, by November this year, 26 million of funding has been raised by the overall 2 cohort of startups. And they are 71% in seed funding and 25% in A and only 4% in B. And the startups are also indicate that they are in the last talk with potential investors to raise further 33 million in the 1 to 3 months starting from this November. And this is not all. There are lots of other investment opportunities, as our startups are indicating they are raising further funding of 43 million in the 4 to 6 months and another 41 million in 7 to 12 months. We are very delighted to see that for this first round of Tech4Eva program, the evaluation by the Tech4Eva startups for the program is quite satisfactory. We still have a lot of room to improvement, of course. We estimated there are about 60% of improvement should be made regarding the quality of the program curriculum, and 43 regarding the quality of the trainers, and only 8% to be improved regarding the organization of the programs. When they are asked for the question whether they would like to recommend our program to other startups, so all the startups except one recommend our program. And of course, I'm going to find out the reason for the one who gave negative answers, so in order that we can further improve ourselves. Tech4Eva for now is an accelerator program. Going forward, we like to build an inclusive innovation platform. We like to reach out to research community to promote projects on health equity and gender medicine. And would also like build open innovation culture for more FemTech solutions so that we can bring people together and to create new solution and bring it to the market. Going forward, for next year, we would like to call for projects and select 10 to 15 growth stage startups and 5 to 10 early stage startups. We would like to develop the focus group according to the needs of the companies, and through mandate and sponsorship. We would like to also bring in capital to aggregate talents and know-how for the FemTech industries. Tech4Eva is a great human adventure. It starts with the vision and energy of the individuals that would like to create innovation in underdeveloped and underinvested sectors. The initiative won't see the light of the day without our 2 partner institutions, EPFL and Groupe Mutuel. But it won't be successful without the energy and dedication of a strong team. Here, I would like to first of all send my tribute to all the trainers and mentors and that are involved in our programs. So their industrial knowledge, their business know-how, and their personal commitment is the most important quality of this program. I would like to say thanks also to Nicolas Loyot, who have brought up the topics of Tech4Eva and who have made a considerable contribution to building the FemTech community and also to building up the Tech4Eva platform. Many thanks also to our group focus leaders and the moderators. You have been working very hard to try to deep dive into one specific topic of the women's health, and by doing so, you contribute to building the community. My many thanks also to the Groupe Mutuel team for their strong support for the daily operations and for their idea and also suggestions for their help in promotion and also the recruitment of startups. Last but not least, I would like to thanks for the whole team of EPFL Innovation Park for their hard work, for their dedication, for having ensuring the smooth running of these very ambitious programs, and for having orchestrated 45 events during 9 months. We are at the beginning of a very exciting venture. There are a lot of new opportunities and also new challenges to consider. So we invite all of you to stay with us and help each other and work together for the cause of women's health. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lan, for that. So I hope you'll enjoy that little break because we're ready for the second part of our program. As we mentioned earlier, we're here to raise awareness, to increase the conversation on the most pressing issues of women's health. And we are here to we're excited to share some of these solutions with you from our tech founders. So one of the things that we've done for this conference is, expanding the research in women's health is definitely a priority. There's a research gap in terms of gender that affects everything from diagnostics to preventative care. So like innovators and medical professionals around the world that are pushing research specifically for women's health, some of our co-founders of the program have also expanded that research and added their contribution to the field. And so we're excited to share some of their findings today. Introducing our first topic, it's Annalisa, our CEO of Imply. She will be sharing with us how monitoring and data collection in hormonal health is crucial to IVF treatment and bridging some of the gaps in IVF treatment and efficiencies as well. So I'd like to welcome Annalisa. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, and it's a great pleasure to be here and a great honor to be here. And I'd also like to thank the whole program that we've had and have learned from, but also have grown as part of this. I run the company Imply, and not sure my slides are. There they are. Wonderful. And what we work in is implantable technologies for hormone monitoring. And I'll tell a little bit more about this later in the pictures. But today I really want to focus on the inefficiencies in IVF treatment and where we see opportunities to grow. We tackle one part of this, but there are actually more parts, and these are elements that I want to speak about. To be had. In vitro fertilization has been around since the 80s, and there's been huge progress being made in this field. But of course, because social challenges and growing infertility rates, there's more to be done, and there's more to be done for couples in this process. So first of all, I want to start by saying off that IVF is complex. These are just some of the elements that affect it, and we are only in some parts of this. There are different areas that need optimization, and some of you will have experience here and will know this, but there's optimization in all of these, and there's research to be done in all of these to grow them. And I'll be talking a little bit later about our work, but I want to focus on the overview as a whole from the beginning so that we can help with clinicians, but also endocrinologists and embryologists, but also the couples to have better experiences as they require treatment of this. So first of all, when we look at IVF treatments and kind of success rates that are out there, 30-year-old woman requires an average of 5.5 IVF cycles to have a successful pregnancy. And that gets even more significant the older the woman gets. So a 40-year-old woman will have about a 10-time IVF cycle on average to become successfully pregnant. That has a huge impact because we have to think of the woman as, and also the man in that, the full couple, as people who have lives on the sides. And 5.5 IVF cycles means a year or more than a year of treatment that they go through in order to become pregnant and to move on from there. So this is a huge investment of women, and this is a huge investment of their time spent on these cycles. So improving this means a lot to women who are trying to become pregnant. Globally, there's IVF cycles being done. Infertility is a rising problem. Here is a map of those. It's about 2.4 million IVF cycles being done globally per year. And that is really important to note. But there's a bigger problem to this. There's the cost of IVF. And this correlates to inefficiencies. Each cycle, so if we take 5.5 IVF cycles, each cycle costs at least about $10,000 US in the US. So if you go through 5.5 of them, then that is a significant amount, and there is unaffordability to this. And this is important because inefficiency can help bridge this gap. And when we help bridge this gap, we make this available to more women who are out there, to more women who actually need this, or couples who need this treatment. And there's a huge discrepancy. So let's look at this in terms of scale. So there's about 48 million couples struggling with infertility. And there's only about 2.5 million IVF cycles, which equates, if we take an average, to about 830,000 women who or couples who go through this treatment. Of course, not all 48.5 million couples who are struggling with infertility classify for IVF treatment or would like to go through this, but there's still a huge discrepancy between the two. And bridging the gap of efficiency in this will also bridge the gap in the cost and therefore access and affordability of the treatments. So that means that, or why there is the gap, or how we can bridge this, is there's a huge cost that drives that can be reduced by inefficiencies. There's a lack of reimbursements in general on the market in the healthcare world in IVF, and mostly also, and we did market research around this, there's no access to fertility treatments. So facilitating access actually means a lot to many women. And there's many women who travel wide abroad in order to access this treatment and access fertility services, but not all people can afford this. And so being able to make fertility treatment accessible to all will allow us to expand this market and help more women in this space as societal changes drive infertility. Now, how can we achieve this safely, but also sustainably? We could, increase the amounts of clinics there are, increase the gynecologists, embryologists, available clinics. However, that's very costly and that takes a long time. And where we see advancements, or where we see reasons or ways to bridge the inefficiencies, is by increasing the data that we collect, and therefore reducing the inefficiencies that are out there. So that also means, and there is huge optimization in this space, increasing the availability or the ability to transfer data between different actionaries of the system, so that we can learn from the insights of different data that's collected from those different systems, but also from the clinicians themselves. One example of where this has been done in IVF treatments is kind of time-lapse monitoring of the embryo with images. And this is to collect or to understand what the highest quality of embryo is that can then be implanted. And this has been a novel technology that came into the market in this space, where embryos are basically put into an incubator and directly monitored inside the incubator, and therefore lots of data is being captured about their growth, therefore increasing efficiency. This is still at the beginning of, this technology is still at the beginning of its delivery, however is showing promising signs to it. However, there's much more data around this. As we spoke earlier about the complexities of this, IVF treatments are really complex, and there's so many actionaries, which means there's so much different data to be collected from different areas. And there's the mum, there's the dad, there's the embryo, there's a clinic. And it's really important to look at these. And as much as I'll go in a minute a little bit more about the female or the mum, there is data being collected currently around the sperm side. There's data being collected around the embryo side. And in my opinion, there should be more data collected around the clinic side. So how do gynecologists make decisions? How is process out there? And there's huge innovation scope on all of these areas of the treatment. And of course, there's an entire ecosystem around this, which stress or environmental factors that also affect this. Now, what we do at Impli, and I mentioned it briefly, but I'll talk about it later as well in the talk, is we frequently monitor fertility hormones that are relevant. Now, where is this relevant, for example, in an IVF treatment? How can we utilize this large amount of data that we're capturing to make something more efficient? And one of the parts is, for example, in the luteal phase, and whenever you go through an IVF treatment, that would be an abnormality in the luteal phase. And there is very little information there, and serum levels are not actually a great way of monitoring women, just because the luteal phases change very quickly. So having a time shot of one incidence, so one blood level serum level isn't enough information to really make us understand how we can be more precise. So when in the luteal phase, progesterone, for example, pulses every 90 minutes, one blood shot of serum level progesterone wouldn't be enough to give more information. And this is work that we are working on so that we can build much more accurate, much more precise treatment, so that we can work on curbing some of the inefficiencies, using the data sets in combination with other data sets in order to make or allow clinicians to make better decisions alongside with them. But at the same time, actually also looking at remote healthcare and being able to provide these treatments from far distances. And when we did our market research, that was what women were looking for most in the monitoring space. We can look at another example of where high-frequent hormone monitoring can be really optimal, or can be really well suited for IVF treatments, and therefore increase, for example, the harvesting of the eggs. So high-precision kind of drug administration, and then therefore capturing high-quality eggs in the end. There's significant research out there, and we, for example, work with King's Fertility in the UK around capturing more high-quality eggs and therefore getting better outcome later in the IVF treatment. Now, we can do this by monitoring closer and being able to provide this. But there are still ways to improve this, and there are benefits that this monitoring actually captures beyond. There's the benefit, of course, that the ecosystem is not only for IVF, so technologies developed in this sector can also be used somewhere else, but also that it increases safety for, in this case, the woman, but also other actionaries and sustainability in this space. But it also allows us to deliver better machine learning algorithms later on. So hopefully in the future, when we look in the further future, we can actually predict someone's outcome before they even start treatment or even before they consider treatment. So these are drivers that are long-term drivers where we can help with more data and therefore better outcomes for women, but also and lastly, in the advancement of drug development, there are huge aspects where more monitoring can actually help develop better drugs and therefore deliver better treatment. Most of all, though, what I want to say is that there are more efficiencies to be had. So we've got more factors that are important in this space to drive and overcome and bridge these inefficiencies. One of them is a data-driven effort. I mentioned that already. And this is an effort of making data seamless and being able to share data and being able to have data between different actionaries. The other one is collaboration. So it's really important that all actors in this space, and I showed the diagram before, and we saw the really complex landscape of this, collaborate when it comes to data so that we can really leverage these inefficiencies. And lastly, there's investment in the space. We need to invest into disruptive technologies that disrupt the status quo and that improve the way that things are being done at the moment. And this takes the collaboration of all actors in this space to make this a reality. And so we hope to be able to deliver that with Impli, but we hope that there are loads of other startups coming up in this space that help us deliver better treatments in this space and that help us deliver better care in this space. And I think that Tech4Eva specifically has been a really great place to capture that, but also to really get the voice out there that this is needed and that this is really, really important for us to do. So thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, we are around. We're also going to be here later. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna-Luisa, for this fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to our next talk. Clearly, the pandemic has demonstrated how important is rapid and decentralized diagnostics. At the same time, we understood the limitations of existing point-of-care solutions. Connected, rapid diagnostic testing can not only provide access to better healthcare, but also improve patient journeys. And to tell us more about this subject, we have with us Matthias Wipp from Mom Diagnostics.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the intro. Yes, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about point-of-care diagnostics, in particular, its trends, challenges, and future. And to the future, we can hopefully contribute a little bit. So I hope everybody can see my slides. Okay. So if I'm talking about diagnostics today, I'm really focusing on in vitro diagnostics, which is basically taking a sample from your body and analyze it outside of your body. Kind of different what Impli is doing, but nonetheless, so the whole diagnostic procedure is not just a test itself, but it's a kind of a journey which starts with the decision to test. So first of all, you may encounter symptoms, or it's an emergency, or you simply want to have assurance whether you are infected, for example, with SARS-CoV-2, or out of curiosity. The next step would be the sampling. What is needed? What kind of matrix? Is it a urine test? Do you need a blood sample, just a saliva? And then how to get to this sample? Do you need the trained personnel to assist you to take the sample? And also, where does the sample need to go? Do you need to prepare it in a special way to ship it, or can you analyze it directly on site? The next point is actually running the diagnostic tests on some kind of device. The question is, how long does it take to analyze it? It can be multiple days. Usually it's a few minutes. But then the most important question here is the analytical performance. How good is that test? That then leads into the interpretation. It's the diagnostic sensitivity. So and its relevance to your symptoms. So what does it mean now? Does it somehow correlate to my symptoms? Does it answer my questions? And that follows by the results communication, which may be direct. So if you run a test yourself, you have the results directly available. It may be just a text message from your COVID screening center, or it could be by a doctor. And then the last step is an intervention. Maybe you need to start a therapy or just a change in behavior, whether this is a change in nutrition or going into isolation if you have a positive SARS-CoV-2 result. So over this whole course, there are a few questions that need to be asked right from the start. So first of all, do you need guidance by a healthcare professional, or can you run it as a self-test? And then how reliable are the tests? So do you trust the self-test enough to just, go out and buy such a test and take the whole journey without any medical professionals? And then there's the relevance of the time to result, which in some cases matters for medical reason, where the results needs to be in fast, but in other times it's just convenient for patients and doctors, because you can have direct consultation with your doctor. You don't have to wait a couple of days and get back to discuss the result with your doctor again. And if I'm talking about time to result, it's basically the time of taking the sample until you know the result of the test. And that brings me to the promise of point-of-care testing, which is basically a near-patient analysis. So you can analyze your sample right next to the patient, and this cuts down the time to result from sometimes days down to minutes. And this is usually done with so-called rapid diagnostic tests. They do require little to no infrastructure. So usually it's a simple test kit, maybe a readout device, and they're optimized for home health care. So meaning nurses in home healthcare settings or even self-testing can be done with these devices. However, the reality of these point-of-care tests doesn't look so bright. If we look at the few success stories that actually made it to market and are widely used globally, there are just two prominent examples of the pregnancy test kit, where women can test their urine for pregnancy hormone and have a pretty secure indication whether they're pregnant or not. And the other one is the blood glucose monitoring. So helping millions of diabetic people to check their glucose levels. But as I said, these are too few examples who made it and are widespread globally. So why aren't more self-tests or these rapid diagnostic tests in use? So first of all, one of the important challenges is the sampling. It's often not as simple as just a urine test. So again, here, the COVID pandemic is a perfect example. I'm sure everybody of you has had a PCR test with a nasopharyngeal swab. It's not that straightforward for an untrained person to do a nasopharyngeal swab yourself. So you will need the help of some trained staff. The second point is the analytical performance of these devices is usually not great, as I will come to in a second. And this may lead to incorrect test result, which may present a risk to the patients, but also to the environment of the patient, if we're talking about an infectious disease, for instance. And this leads to higher healthcare cost at the end. So it's actually a downside. So coming to this analytical performance that I mentioned, it's basically consists out of the analytical sensitivity. So it's very technical, how low in analyte can these devices measure? And that is combined with the precision. So how repeatable are these test results from measurement to measurement? And the last point is really the validation. So how trustworthy are these results? So if you compare the three different sectors in vitro diagnostics, where you have the centralized labs working on fully automated machines operated by trained professional staff, they offer very high precision, but also include a lot of different steps, a lot of people involved until the sample is actually analyzed and the result is back with the doctor and the patient. Then you have the doctor's office tests, usually tabletop machines.
Yeah.
And which get regular maintenance and calibration, so they usually are quite precise. But then if you switch to real point-of-care devices, they are often used by non-trained people. There is no real control over maintenance and calibration of these devices, and they're also optimized for low cost and fast results. So here you take a hit on the precision. And here again, the SARS-CoV-2 rapid antigen tests is a nice example, which kind of reflects badly onto rapid diagnostic tests. So if you look at the viral load of a person who's going through a COVID infection, let's say over 2 weeks. So initially the viral load just explodes until it reaches a level where the patients are becoming symptomatic, indicated in the yellow data points here. So here, the viral load reaches a level which can be picked up by rapid antigen tests. But this is only comparable, a small time window over the whole course of the infection. So on a lot of days, a rapid antigen test would miss the infection. And so this reflects badly on these rapid antigen tests and in general in point-of-care testing, and the lab PCR test remains the gold standard here. Nonetheless, there is a huge trend of getting closer to the patient with diagnostics. So if we heard this morning already, it's less about caring for the sick, but also the well care. So there's a huge pull from or a demand we've seen in wearables. So wearables no longer just track our movements, they actually monitor a lot of our vital signs, and they are really entering the medtech space. So a good example here is Eva Women with their fertility tracker. So wearables can now be used to optimize fertility tracking. So there's also a big trend for lifestyle testing. So where you can send in your sample to a centralized lab and just check your health status. So a lot of these labs promise a healthier you, or for example, some ancestry testing. And so there's an ever increasing range of offers in telemedicine, and this has also experienced a huge boost during the COVID pandemic. So although healthcare systems want to have this remote counseling. And last but not least, there's this buzzword of mobile health, which is basically the idea of connecting a lot of data that's available and make use of that data to streamline the whole healthcare system. So over the last couple of years, there was a huge increase in offers of mobile health app, and also the downloads exploded. So what I mentioned is it's basically you make use of connected diagnostics. So you use the test results, use other parameters, and collect it in a mobile network accessible for the patients. They can make use of it via remote consultation or improving linkage to care. But also the doctors benefit from this, so they can profit from automated decision trees and have a reduced burden of communication. Again, other stakeholders such as the clinic or the public health system may be interested in this. And last but not least, also the manufacturers of wearables and diagnostic tests, because they have a quality control of their products. So this trend demands for robust and rapid diagnostic tests, because people, they actually want immediate test results, not just the patients, but also the doctors. You know, you just streamline this whole process. But at the same time, everybody wants high analytical and clinical performance. And the test should be easy to operate, so minimally invasive. Nobody wants to do a test which hurts. And last but not least, to fit into this mobile health trend, the connectivity and security becomes more and more important for these tests. So we at Mom Diagnostics are developing technology towards this field. And the first test we're developing is a rapid pre-eclampsia rule-out test. So pre-eclampsia is a dangerous and highly prevalent pregnancy condition. The condition can be dangerous for the mother as well as the baby and can even lead to death. Up to 8% of all pregnancies are affected, and this causes 500,000 infant deaths every year, and a lot of short and long-term complications for mother as well as the baby. And unfortunately, the only resolution is delivery of the baby, often by inducing premature birth or C-section. Now, the problem is that the clinical diagnosis of the condition is still very unreliable, as it is mostly based on elevated blood pressure and an excess of protein in the urine. So these symptoms are not very specific for pre-eclampsia and may not even present in some cases. Therefore, many cases go unnoticed. And on the other hand, a lot of pregnancies are falsely categorized as high risk, and unnecessary interventions are taken. This puts the mother and the baby at risk and also increases healthcare costs. So we at Mom Diagnostics are developing a rapid diagnostic test which can be used during routine pregnancy checkups. So doctors will have immediate information whether a patient is at risk or if pre-eclampsia can be ruled out. So thereby, doctors can delay risky interventions, such as inducing premature birth, and thereby improve the outcome for mother and baby. The test itself requires no complicated lab routines, no time-consuming callbacks, and this is important to reduce the stress and anxiety for the expectant mothers. And for the doctors, they can focus on outpatient management. Again, this reduces obstetric costs. So we really aim towards this mobile health technology by bringing laboratory performance to the point of care, so thereby improving the diagnostic sensitivity and specificity of these devices and offering an immediate test result, which then really streamlines the diagnostic procedure. So a single drop of blood is needed. You have an automatic result interpretation and the full connectivity. So this all goes in favor to bringing diagnostics closer to the patient and really pushing towards this mobile health idea and even for self-testing. So I would love to talk more about our technology. Unfortunately, my time is up. I would be happy to connect. So here are my contact details. I'm online the whole day, also in the afternoon session of the Swiss Accelerator Showcase. So again, thanks a lot to the Tech4Eva team. It was a pleasure to follow this incubator and a great chance for me. We enjoyed it a lot, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthias. I've learned a lot. I don't know how about you.
Absolutely.
And now let's increase a little bit the pace and move to the startup pitches. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you 5 elevator pitches from 5 startups, growth stage, from the Tech4Eva 2021 edition.
I'm Anna-Louisa, and I'm the founder of Impli. What makes implantables great is that you can really closely monitor from the interstitial fluid. And where we want to act first is combating and understanding hormone profiles of women. And looking at the IVF sector, where frequent monitoring of hormone levels is very common and very necessary in order to create precise treatments and then increase the precision and safety of IVF cycles. And we do this with our small implantable biosensors that we have. These devices are about 16 millimeters by 2 millimeters wide and play directly into a smartphone. These sensors measure estradiol, progesterone, luteinizing hormone, and that increases convenience, precision, and safety of women. We're currently in the process of completing our manufacturing plan and executing the first manufacturing of this. Thank you very much.
I'm Matthias Wipp, CEO and co-founder of Mom Diagnostics. We care about the health of pregnant women, and our first test in development is a rapid diagnostic test for pre-eclampsia. Pre-eclampsia causes around 500,000 infant and 75,000 maternal deaths every year. Of that, it causes a huge economic burden. So early and accurate identification of pre-eclampsia is crucial to minimize complications. We are developing a rapid blood test which is used during routine pregnancy checkups at the doctor's office. So the test is very easy to use. It's a drop of blood loaded onto a single-use cartridge, and in combination with our handheld reader, the doctors have the result ready within a few minutes. So our solution is to improve the diagnosis and thereby save costs for the healthcare system and save lives. Please contact me if you're interested to learn more.
Hi, I'm Andrea Bornoz with Aspivix, a medical device company in women's health with a vision to make gynecology now modern. Our first product is a solution to a real problem in gynecology, the tenaculum. It affects more than 80 million women every year in common office-based procedures. It was invented over a century ago and is very effective because the hooks at the end pierce the cervix in order to stabilize it, causing significant pain and significant bleeding. Our new device, MidCareVix, is a next generation cervical device that uses suction technology to secure the cervix without compromising on performance. Our current clinical trial in 2 university centers in Switzerland are showing very robust results, and here you can see how the device gently attaches to the cervix without causing pain or bleeding. We are currently fundraising Series A, 5 million Swiss francs, to fund our commercial launch in the US and in Europe. Thank you very much. Please come talk to us if you would like to know more.
I'm Gora Conley, and I'm the co-founder of Anaida Technologies. To make it simple, our mission is to help people in making babies. Turns out that the old-fashioned way doesn't always work out, and this is a growing problem. Already 1 in 10 couples have to turn to alternatives, like in vitro fertilization. And a crucial aspect in getting that success the first time lies in the doctor's ability to choose the right embryo for transfer. And that's where we come in. We're developing a device that will enable doctors to choose the right embryo as soon as possible. The device can detect the metabolic fingerprint of individual embryos without even touching them. All the doctor has to do is place multiple embryos from the same patient inside this device, connect it to a machine for analysis, and get back a simple result, which is the embryos scored for viability. In April last year, we closed our seed financing round, 1 million francs. More recently, we were awarded an EU grant for nearly double of our seed round. If you want to know more and might be interested in joining us for the next round, please get in touch with me. Thank you very much.
My name is Elizabeth Gazda. I'm the CEO of Ember Labs. By 2025, there will be 1.1 billion women in menopause. They will suffer from hot flashes, insomnia, anxiety, and brain fog. Today, women are spending about $2,000 a year out of pocket for partial solutions. What we've done is discovered a new pathway to the brain using temperature as a messenger to balance the autonomic nervous system. We apply thermal energy to the inside of the wrist that triggers the brain to balance the autonomic nervous system and dampen down menopausal symptoms without any medicine or side effects. We partnered with Johnson & Johnson to prove out the efficacy of the device. In all cases, we were able to move these clinical measures in ways that drugs to this point have only addressed. By the end of 2022, we will be able to predict an hot flash before it starts and kick the device into operation. We are also on our way to have a signed partnership with a major global CPG brand. And to date, we've sold over 77,000 units. Thank you.
Wonderful. Great pitches. Thank you all to the startups. It's great to see your progress and also for us to show it to the rest of the participants online. We've learned a lot, and this is part of what we're here. We're continuing to learn. So I would like to next introduce the next topic of our white paper research topics that we have accumulated for this conference. The vaginal microbiota, or the makeup of that, actually is very much related to different kinds of women's health issues that are understudied at this point today. Higher increased risk of preterm pregnancies, higher risk of STDs, and obviously very painful menstrual cycles. So even though there's been research done in this area, we still don't understand enough. So I'd like to introduce Laura Simolo of Stanford University to help us understand how we can go forward in this research and what findings there are to be had.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Very sad not to be in person, not even to be live with you, but hopefully we can still connect later. I'm Laura Simolo. I'm a postdoc in the statistics department at Stanford University, and I'm very happy to be presenting today some bits of my work at this event. So I'm going to make myself a little smaller and move myself here in the corner. Hopefully that works for the rest of the presentation, which is going to be about the variations of the vaginal ecosystem throughout the menstrual cycle. So my research interests really are to use and to develop statistical methods for studying the menstrual cycle, and more specifically, its interactions with other physiological functions. So here we have a little cartoon description of the menstrual cycle, and it entails a lot of things already, right? So we have hormonal levels, fluctuations of estradiol, progesterone, LH peaks, and so on. We have the preparation of an egg, the release of an egg, and then everything that follows after that release. In the uterus, we have the development and decay of the endometrium. And then there are also a bunch of body signs that vary with the menstrual cycle and that are related to our fertility, right? So we have cervical mucus that gets produced under the impact of estradiol. That's also something people can observe and can be reported in apps by users of menstrual cycle tracking apps, for example. To do this work, I use both clinical data and data from fertility or menstrual cycle tracking apps. And so even though I'm probably not going to talk so much about this today, this is still kind of the bulk of my work. And then in the future, I really hope to combine those two kind of data. But today, I'm actually going to focus a little bit more on the clinical data and how the menstrual cycle impacts the vaginal microbiome. And first of all, why does the menstrual cycle research matter? So it's interesting because in many other fields of science, you would often hear people say that fundamental research kind of like is necessary to feed and to like give birth to more applied technologies and more applied research. And I feel in that field, and especially I think maybe in the last decade, it almost has been the opposite, that really applied research and concrete tools and tools pushed by startups and companies have actually really helped us to start understanding how we can do more fundamental research on the menstrual cycle. And these are data from a menstrual cycle tracking apps. It's data from a user who has been tracking for 7 years their menstrual cycle. And when we see this, it really kind of like the first time we can grasp kind of like how this cycle can really be a fundamental rhythm of life, right? And it's so unique to humans. Like very few species actually do have a menstrual cycle. So that also makes research on that topic kind of difficult because we can't use animal models to look at those phenomena. And it's also really at the core of reproduction, right? So it's crucial for species survival. We actually have found that there are active or expressed estradiol receptors in virtually every tissue of the human body. And so these two things combined makes it that being able to study the menstrual cycle and this progress have come from more like an industrial background almost, like really gives us insight on what it means to be humans. And then also, it wouldn't be surprising that the menstrual cycle has such an effect on female health because it's so crucial for species survival. And so we would expect, in fact, that the menstrual cycle can impact physiological functions and behavioral functions. And there have been some studies in psychology showing this, and it feels like we are still like kind of catching up on how to study this in the context of health. And for this, I would recommend to you this very, very nice review by Professor Alvaring, which asks the question, is female health cyclical? It's an evolutionary perspective on menstruation. And this kind of review points at all the pieces of evidence that we have that in a lot of chronic conditions and a lot of things that involve the inflammatory system or the immune system, we see that there are cyclicity in the symptoms. And that shows the links between the menstrual cycle and immunology. And so that's quite interesting. And so what I will show today is one example of how maybe the menstrual cycle in the mechanism, like really in the molecular mechanism may be impacting those functions. And this is in the context of the vaginal microbiome. So what is the vaginal microbiome? It's simply really the set of bacteria that we have in the vagina. So you may have heard of the gut microbiome, of the skin microbiome. So we have also microbiome, microbiota in the vagina. And in the gut microbiome, a diverse microbiome is often associated with healthy is often considered as a healthy microbiome, in the vagina it tends to be the opposite. So a healthy vaginal microbiota is a microbiota that is mostly dominated by one species or one genus, the Lactobacillus, the same as for the yogurt or similar as for the yogurt. And on the opposite, dysbiosis is considered when we have a diversity of non-lactobacillus species. And often the microbiota exists in those two states, either fully dominated by lactobacillus or not having lactobacillus and being fully diverse. And obviously there are transitions between the two and dynamic changes of these microbiota sometimes very rapidly. But why is it important to think about this vaginal microbiota, and why does it matter that to have lactobacillus or not, is that this basis, so a paucity of lactobacillus has been associated with a series of negative health outcomes. So the most obvious one is maybe Bacterial Vaginosis Bv, which is actually really describing this invasion of non-lactobacillus species in the vagina, and that creates some inflammation. But sometimes someone can be asymptomatic for BV and still be at risk or at higher risk of sexually transmittable infection. And in some parts of the world, HIV is still a growing epidemic or an uncontrolled epidemic. And so this matters there. But then throughout, everywhere around the globe, we also have found that this basis, a lack of lactobacillus species was associated with increased risk of preterm birth. And it is still quite unclear what the causal relationships are. So is it that really the vaginal microbiome, so those bacteria have an impact or trigger or increases the risk for negative health outcome? Or is there something in the host that is both going to lead to lack of lactobacillus species and at the same time is going to increase the risk of negative health outcome? Or is it, and probably more likely, a mix of everything where the vaginal microbiome may well trigger those negative health outcomes in some cases, but all of that might be also kind of regulated, and there might be interactions with the host physiology, the level of inflammations and things like that. And so this is why it's kind of nice to think of systems that would allow us to question whether some of these arrows even exist, right? And this is where the menstrual cycle is interesting, because the menstrual cycle is, a host function. It is independent of the vaginal microbiome, and it allows us to question whether there is at least some impact of how the host, the status of the host on the vaginal microbiome. And so looking at those relationships here gives us a little bit of insight on the more global picture. So for these questions, we use data that were already collected, part of another study, where 40 participants had self-collected vaginal swabs. I guess with COVID, we're all used to what a swab is. This time it's not in the nose, it's in the vagina, but same principle. You put it in a tube, you close the tube, and then you send your samples for sequencing. And they did that for 10 weeks every day. So it's a lot of data and a very rich data set. And so these samples, all of them, they were sequenced, so we could know what was the microbial composition, which bacteria were actually in the vagina on each of these days. And then for each participant, there were 5 samples that were taken to quantify the metabolites. What are the metabolites? The metabolites are just small molecules that are in the environment. They could be nutrient for bacteria, but it could also be things that bacteria excretes. They could be also exchange between the epithelial cell of the host, the vaginal wall cells. So they're just part of the ecosystem of the vagina for these bacteria. And then also the cytokines, so 20 cytokines in this case, were quantified, and again in 5 samples per participant, so not all the samples. And so what are cytokines? Cytokines are also molecules that are excreted by immune cells of the host. So these are clearly a host response. And so in this case, we quantified 20 of them, so these, but then also other ones. And these were done for 5 samples. And so what we found is actually, and this is also not peer-reviewed, it's very fresh, very new results, but overall, this is what we found, is that 50% of the cytokines actually did show a differential expression throughout the cycles. Now, most of them actually showed elevated concentrations during the menses, and this is kind of was expected because the menses, the menstruation, how the menstrual blood is created, is actually an inflammatory process in the uterus endometrium. And so it's kind of expected that if there is cytokines used to regulate those processes in the uterus for regulating the menstrual bleeding, then you would find them in the vagina when you collect a swab because they could flow down with the blood. But then there were also some cytokines, and for example, INF gamma, that had elevated concentrations also around ovulation. And this was not necessarily expected. And so this is interesting to see that it's not just the menses, they're also like signaled throughout the cycle. And unfortunately, we actually didn't have hormonal measurements in this study, so we can't really like pinpoint ovulation exactly, and we can't really assess the exact timing of the menstrual cycle. But so future studies that would have hormonal measurements could help understanding whether it's hormonally regulated or something else regulated. So that would be interesting. Regarding the metabolites, we found that approximately 10% of the metabolites actually did show also a differential concentration throughout the cycle. And same thing, although during the menses, but not just during the menses, so there were changes throughout the cycle. And so again, this was interesting to see that we could see those cyclical patterns in these small molecules. And also one thing to note is that these variations, these increased level, were not necessarily related to the composition of the vaginal microbiome. So they existed independently of changes or relative constant microbiome composition. And finally, for the microbiota, which really is what we were interested in, so we couldn't just look at which microbes overall in all participants were more expressed in some times of the cycle. First of all, for statistical reasons, because we only have relative abundance. And so it's hard to know absolutely when is the peak for one specific microbe. But also because every individual really has its own set of microbe. And so, someone could have very high levels of one bacteria, but anyone else in the study did have the same levels. So what we did in this case, and because we had daily data really for 10 weeks, we could look at the correlation between one cycle and the next cycle. And if we observed that the variations in one cycle were kind of identical to the variations in the second cycle, then you can infer that the menstrual cycle kind of plays a role and that these variations are not just random, but they are kind of regulated by the menstrual cycle. And this is what we see. So this is an example here for one subject. So you can see vertically, they're all the bugs or the main bugs that this person had in their vagina. And then you see how from one cycle, so the blue one is the first cycle, orange is the second cycle, how like some variations are really like kind of following each other from one cycle to the next. And so that's what we see for most of the people here. The correlations is pretty high. And so overall, the implications of these findings are that we can see that the menstrual cycle kind of has an impact on the vaginal microbiome. And what is interesting is that, again, we didn't have hormone measurements, or we didn't have like quantification of the mucus qualities or things like that. But it could be that the steroid hormones, so that the microbes are sensitive to the hormones, or that they're sensitive to changes in mucus. And we don't know this yet. But this would be really interesting to further dig into, because maybe that can mean that it may have an interaction with other microbiomes. And so we're thinking of the gut microbiome, for example, which regulates a lot of the functions related to digestion and glycemic response regulation. And so if we were to see similar responses, that would be quite interesting to understand how regulation of insulin works throughout the cycle, for example. And so we really need to continue deepen our understanding of the impact of the menstrual cycle and of the reproductive hormones on the immune system and on health in general. Because, so first of all, of course, there were a lot of diseases and a lot of aspects of health that have been neglected and have not been studied in women. But then also because I really think it gives us kind of a way to use like these natural variations of things to really interrogate some of these causal relationships. We won't always like find the answer, but when we do, it actually gives us really good insights on those pathways. And there are also a lot of things, a lot of symptoms that, you know, not just exist in women, right? Exist in both sexes. So if we can make progress using those natural variations in women that we understand relatively well, then it may give us insight on the overall pathways, and this is beneficial for both sex health. And so the future is, as I said, I really would like to continue combining this clinical data with self-reported symptoms. And I think that it has been really wonderful actually working with companies like Clue or Kindara, because with their tools, they have access to so many users around the globe. And so we can have data from populations that we would not necessarily have access to otherwise. And so that's been really interesting. And I think that there are also a lot of FemTech that are more and more also adventuring on these clinical data side and trying to facilitate the collection of those clinical data, or like trying to bring back the insights that we gain from a scientific perspective back to the users. And so, yeah, I really believe that the collaboration with FemTech companies has the power to bring new data for scientific research, but then also afterwards to deliver targeted care for the patients. And so this is quite exciting to be doing research on these topics. And this is why I also really appreciated to be with you today, virtually and not in sync, but still nonetheless. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to connecting with you at a later dates, maybe. Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Laura, for this very insightful presentation. Clearly, human microbiome is a very complex subject, yet very important, and in particular, vaginal microbiome. I mean, yeah, there is a lot to do there, and thank you so much for what you're doing to advance the research in this field and the progress in this field. Let's move to our next topic. So as you probably remember from the startup pitches, by 2025, it is projected that over 1.1 billion will be menopausal. At the same time, what you probably don't know is that there is also a projection that by 2030, 70% of the workforce will be female. At the same time, 80% of women who experience menopause report rather severe symptoms, and in some cases, well, almost half of them sometimes cannot even go to work. But fear not, because companies like Ember Labs develop solutions that help women who go through menopause thrive in their workplace. And it is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Elizabeth Gazda.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you from Boston. My name is Elizabeth Gazda, and I'm the CEO of Ember Labs. Today, I'm going to talk to you about menopause in the workplace. But before we talk about menopause in the workplace, let's talk about the true cost of being female. What does our biology cost us? Well, it starts when a woman gets her period. A woman is going to have almost 500 periods over her lifetime. And this adds up to 7 cumulative years of menstruation. And this comes at a cost. You need supplies, you need medical care. There are all kinds of implications for a woman when she is menstruating. It actually comes at a cost of $10,000 over a lifetime for a woman. This also has an impact on employers and organizations. It equates to 23 days of absenteeism per year due to migraines, menstrual pain, and general discomfort. For some women, there's not an option of getting paid when you're not working. You just let that go. When a woman becomes fertile, there's also a cost. The cost of birth control in the United States is $2,000 per year. This includes all types of birth control, whether it's the pill, IUDs, or other methods. When a woman decides to become a mother, that also comes at a cost. Women must leave the workforce, stay home with children, and even spend money out of pocket on childcare. The collective income gap between mothers and non-mothers is estimated to be $350,000. And there's only an amplification if you choose to have more children. So what happens when a woman hits menopause? It sure seems like it's a moment of freedom. It's a moment to pursue the things you want in life, not at a cost, but that's not what happens. By 2025, there will be 1.1 billion women in menopause. And unfortunately, this freedom comes with a new host of symptoms: hot flashes, sleep disturbances, stress and anxiety, and brain fog. And women will experience these symptoms for an entire decade, if not more. You can imagine if you're not sleeping through the night, experiencing stress and anxiety and hot flashes, it's almost impossible to have relief and control of your day. Today, women are spending about $2,000 a year out of pocket to try to find solutions that will help them. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a massive unmet need, and it impacts women at work. 80% of women say that symptoms of menopause interfere with their daily life, and over 50% have said it makes work difficult or even untenable. What happens if women feel that they can't work? Well, I can tell you, they decide to walk out the door and take an early retirement. This is important because women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s are sitting in those key strategic leadership roles across the board: corporations, government, academia, NGOs. They're at the prime of their career. They're at the top of their earning potential, rich in experience, and a lot of investment has been made in these women. They're highly trained, yet they're ready to walk out the door due to the symptoms of menopause. Menopause has a huge impact on productivity, and it's been estimated that globally, that productivity loss is $150 billion per year. 25% of the world's population of women will be menopausal by 2030. So this is something we really need to take a look at. Women with untreated hot flashes utilize 121% more healthcare because they're looking for solutions. Many of these women are put on anti-anxiety drugs or sleep medications or SSRIs. Women with hot flashes have 60% more work productivity loss days. When you're suffering from a hot flash, it's impossible to get any sleep, and you wake up in the morning feeling completely defeated. Menopause today costs U.S. employers as much as $6,500 per woman per year. And globally, the healthcare burden for hot flashes is approximately $660 billion. And productivity losses can total over $150 billion. So the combined impact of this is more than $810 billion. Maybe this is something that we should take a look at. Today, 1 in 10 women have considered quitting their job due to menopause. And by the way, this statistic is based only on the women that we ask. And looking at statistics globally, we haven't been asking. So I can imagine this number is actually much higher. A very important consideration when we look at this landscape is that the landscape of gender parity in the workplace is changing. This is a staggering statistic that by 2030, women will occupy 70% of the working population. This is really the result of fewer men graduating from high school, fewer men graduating from university, and fewer men graduating from professional schools such as law and medicine. What is the societal impact of all this? What happens when women want to walk out the door? What happens when the majority of the workforce will be women? Well, it's profound because Harvard Business School looked at the top 10 competencies for 21st century leaders.
And you see them listed there on the right. Expressive, a future orientation, decisive, reasonable, loyal, flexible, patient, resilient, intuitive, collaborative. And when you look over to the left, you see a very strong alignment between feminine leadership styles. And this, they concluded, is what the talent markets want and need to be successful. If you look at performance, the impact is profound. Firms that have the top quartile of female representation in senior management posted an average almost 50% improvement on return on equity and 55% improvement on earnings per share than companies with none. What this equates to is a potential $28 trillion boost in GDP. This is larger than the output of the European Union. If there were greater gender economic parity by 25, this would have a profound impact on how we see organizations perform. The same holds true when we look at returns with female CEOs or chairperson. You can see there the MSCA World Index comparison against organizations with a female CEO or chairperson. The impact is profound. Let's look at the returns correlating with a female CEO over time. This data only goes to, I believe, 2014, but we can imagine how these lines have extrapolated into the future. You know, women are already fighting an uphill battle here. If we look at this funnel, we see that entry-level positions really start out as being quite equal in the beginning between men and women. But moving into management, director, vice president, and C-suite roles, you can see a tremendous drop-off in female representation. Imagine what happens when we go to the board level. So if this is the normal course of things, what happens when menopause hits? This has a profound impact on the way organizations are run and even the way we see society being run. We're out to change this. Ember Labs has discovered a new pathway through the brain using temperature. We're able to balance the autonomic nervous system, which is what causes many of the symptoms of menopause. We apply simple thermal sensation to the inside of the wrist and hack the brain into feeling more comfortable. We're able to address complex symptoms without side effects. Most importantly, we're on a journey to help women everywhere stay in the workforce and be their best. We recently released our second generation product after selling over 72,000 devices to women all over the world. This is an improved product. It's sleek, wearable, and intelligent. It's been clinically validated by Johnson & Johnson, and it provides the control and relief that women need to stay in the workplace. This is our mission. We're Ember Labs. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that presentation. I think those are very interesting statistics and obviously some tips and information for employees and employers around the world to be able to understand how to better support women in all facets of their professional careers. Thank you for that. I think the big point here is that we're learning not just what the innovations are, but a lot of these companies are doing research on their own for their own fields. And it's just a great learning opportunity to all of us as many of these sectors are underserved. So thank you for that. Moving on next, we have more content, we have more pitches, we have more topics, but I'd like to introduce the next batch of growth stage companies where they will share their 2-minute pitch with you on what they're working on and how to get in touch with them.
Hello, I'm Anna Panigasi for Metabolomic Diagnostics. This is me on the right. Every day all over the world, women and babies still suffer and die from pre-eclampsia. I joined this team because we have the best technology for predicting it. The resolution for pre-eclampsia is to deliver the baby, sometimes too early and with severe complications. When we do know who's at risk, there are known interventions that can improve outcomes. Using one of the largest biobanks of blood samples and a world-class team, we have invested over 8 million euro in developing a highly effective screening test. This is PrEPsia. We have signed a letter of intent with a test lab to bring PrEPsia to the market in the USA within 7 to 10 months. That event will be the first commercial output of our deep technology pipeline. We are raising 1.9 million euro to bring this test to market and be highly profitable within 24 months. PrEPsia is a reality and it is transforming maternal health. Thank you.
My name is Diana Moore and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Move On Therapeutics. Stress urinary incontinence is a disease that affects over 200 million people worldwide. Every fourth woman is affected after childbirth, and the dark numbers of the taboo disease are much higher. SUI represents a huge economic burden to both healthcare and society, and the comorbidities are numerous, ranging from infections through isolation, even up to severe depression. Having no optimal satisfactory solution on the market, I decided to take the chance of translating what I learned during my PhD into a real life-changing solution with the mission to advance a personalized cell therapy platform for skeletal muscle regeneration. My team of experienced researchers and physicians managed a successful translation of the process from the bench to the clinic, supported by 6.5 million euro by the European Commission, bringing a brighter future to all silently suffering patients in need. Thank you a lot.
My name is Jaji. I'm head of content and premium business at PregLife, and PregLife is the #1 baby and pregnancy app in Northern Europe. We know that the connection between parent and kid in the beginning is very important to how the kid grows. So we want to give the tools for families to be able to get this connection early on. Right now we are in 10 markets and we're going to keep expanding, but our biggest markets are Poland, Sweden, and Germany. So right now, content is the core of our app. We have a huge team of midwives and experts that creates all of this content. So have a bunch of features like helping supporting this period. And of course, we have many other projects ongoing to improve our user experience in the app, which is premium content, expansion of free content, and improvements with UX and UI. And currently, we have thousands of great reviews on the App Store and Google Play. Please contact us if you feel that's something that I said is very interesting. Thank you.
So my name is Shivina. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Testmate Health. And today I want to talk about quite an unsexy topic, and that's sexually transmitted diseases. Rates of STDs are rising globally, and there is still no rapid and easy test that can be done quickly to diagnose these common STDs, such as chlamydia and gonorrhea. For example, chlamydia and gonorrhea today are the leading infective causes of infertility. But the treatment is so simple with a simple dose of antibiotics. The technology to achieve this is complex and it crosses multiple scientific disciplines, and we combine 3 breakthrough innovations in order to achieve our product. If we compare this to others, such as Everly, Well, Let's Get Checked, their version of self-testing still needs you to post samples to a lab for processing. We're supported by government grants, and we recently closed our first seed funding round, which was VC-backed. So for anyone who's interested, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and we can set up a call. Thank you very much.
Data Science for Women's Health. I'm Lawrence Fontino, CEO and co-founder of WOM. Our solution is an AI-powered daily women's health tracker. On one hand, we help women during the different stages of their life, but we also work and partner with the health industry to provide insight and also a premium version of WOM. WOM collects more than 100 primary parameters, and with our algorithms, we deliver predictions on the fertile windows, the next cycles, and the pregnancies. We also deliver personalized tips and then a powerful community. Our machine learning is unique. On one hand, we use ML to design predictive models, and then lastly, we have a premium SaaS for the health industry, for insurers, and then FemCare and consumer health. We are present in 9 countries, and then in terms of monetization, we are 32,000 MRR in Q1. Our core business model is a SaaS for brands targeting female audiences. For example, we launched with Mafre, a global insurer, in 2 countries in Latin America, a special version of WOM for them. Please contact with us if you're interested.
Thank you very much, startups, for this great pitches. It's really cool to see so many solutions addressing such important challenges. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce the next topic, mental health. Very important part of health and women's health, of course. From puberty to menopause, women are exposed to so many cultural and societal factors. And if we look at the new generations, which are tech-savvy, and we combine it with the appetite for digital health solutions that emerge during pandemics, well, mental health app market has to respond. And to tell us more about possibilities of using evidence-based practices in digital mental health space, I'm very pleased to welcome our next speaker, Michelle Rossler from Soleil.
Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle Rossler, and I'm streaming from Australia, where I've worked as a psychologist here for the past 20 years. I'm presenting today about trends in female psychological mental health and well-being. At any one time, this stats from Australia, but quite similar globally, 1 in 5 people have a mental illness. And we say that their life is severely impacted at that point in time. So anytime globally, around 792 million have mental illness. But when we look at gender, the stats show that women are actually more impacted by a number of mental health issues. For example, women are 2 times more likely than males to attempt suicide. Eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia are 3 times more common in women than men. Depression is 2 times more likely to occur in a female than a male. Women are also twice as likely as men to have anxiety disorders and PTSD. Now, looking at this, depression is actually something that's really pressing at the moment. World Health Organization has estimated that that will be the leading cause of global disability by 2030, and women are twice as likely than men to develop depression. And also research shows that the symptoms can be persistent over time in women more than they are in men. Also, women have greater likelihood of comorbidity, so more than one mental health issue at any one time. So they may have depression and anxiety and another disorder. But what I want to really focus on today is just going back to look at our adolescents, so females between 15 and young adult women, 24, because I'll show some diagrams which you can see this is where the problems really start to emerge, and I believe that this group warrants the most attention at this point in time. So adolescent females, research in Australia looking at mental health and wellbeing has found that between the ages of 15 to 24, and in the chart here, that's the second column from the left, the dark blue are males, light blue are females, the gap between male and females with mental health issues really starts to widen. And that's the time when young women really are impacted by mental health issues. At any time, 1 in 5 people have a mental health condition. However, by the age of 14, 50% of mental health disorders start. So it's a really critical time around that marker with a young person. By the time someone's 24, 75% of mental health conditions have emerged. And females aged between 16 and 24 are 3 times more likely to have a mental health condition. So it's a really critical time to work with young women, and also before that for early intervention and prevention programs. Young adolescents also tend to have more internalizing issues, psychosomatic symptoms, tummy pains, expressing internally, whereas males it's more externally, anger issues with alcohol. So I'm certainly not saying male mental health needs are not important at all, just that there are differences between the two. Females also are twice as likely to experience more psychological distress than males. And psychological distress is a strong predictor of them developing a significant mental health issue. Research in Australia looking over the past 10 years has found that there's a significant increase in psychological distress amongst female adolescents. So the chart here shows the pink line at the top is females. 34% of females now have heightened levels of psychological distress, so more than 1 in 3, whereas for males it's 15.3%. So it's also increased, but nowhere near the same rate as females. Global research also looking at mental health and wellbeing of young people. This was a really large-scale study. Over 73 countries participated, 500,000 students, found that young females had worse average mental health than boys across all the countries that were examined. And the gap was most pronounced when they're looking for psychological distress, examining that factor. So females have much higher levels of psychological distress. And interestingly, they found that the more gender equal countries actually had larger gender gaps across all of the mental health outcomes. And particularly the heightened levels of psychological distress were found in more gender equal countries. The researchers discussed this and found that it's possibly an incongruence between the expectations that young females feel and reality in these countries. So they might be, it's promoted you can have it all and there's equality, and they're feeling a lot of pressure for career choices, and that focus plus focus about their appearance, which I'll discuss later. And so these expectations they're feeling are quite huge and causing a large level of distress. The chart here shows the green countries, Europe A, so those with more equality, but the highest levels of psychological distress were in the European regions such as Sweden, Norway at the top there. So what's happening? Why over the past 10 years have we seen this significant increase in psychological distress, greater presentations of mental health issues amongst our young females? A good way to explore this is actually, we'll have a fictitious case here of a young adolescent going back 10 years. This is Layla. I was working in private practice in a school a couple of days a week back in 2011, and it's quite typical for me to see a lot of 13, 14-year-old girls, and generally, and boys as well, but there's some key issues they wanted to discuss, and it might be about relationships and studying, getting their homework done, conflict with parents. But what I was finding with girls were often bringing their phones in and really starting to focus on appearance. And at the same time, I also was conducting research, developing a screening tool for plastic surgeons, looking at the psychological well-being and suitability of a person to have surgery. Now, in 2010, the iPhone 4 was released with a front-facing camera. And so this generation we call the selfie generation. Young people started taking more images of themselves. And we saw a trend in 2012. You can Google this or look it up on YouTube, emerging where young people were taking photos of themselves and asking the world, please tell me, am I beautiful or am I ugly? And we're getting feedback from strangers to judge on their appearance. And the girls around this age were doing that, 8 and 9-year-olds. People are also taking photos and uploading it into apps, which within minutes would tell you on a score of 1 to 100 if you're beautiful or ugly. And this is the life of many young girls at the time, despite all the other pressures that were going on for young people. Apps were coming out where you could start to alter your appearance. So at the same time, we saw a significant increase in young people starting to seek cosmetic treatments. And surgeons were saying that young people were saying, please make me look like my selfie self. And people were starting to say, you're born with your face, but you don't have to die with that face, wanting to change their appearance, enhance their lips, enhance different features. And globally, so in the UK and Australia, a lot of research is showing that appearance concerns have also rapidly increased over the last 10 years, particularly amongst young females, and that's really impacted their mental health and well-being. And this chart here then shows from 2011, across the last 10 years, part of the selfie generation has played a major role in how self-esteem is being gained for young people. Stats show the gender differences, particularly presentation anxiety and depression. Diagnosis significantly increased in that 2011 to 16 period, and the gap widened, and it continued to widen until 2020. More psychosomatic internal symptoms manifesting, and across various countries amongst girls, significant mental health issues and concerns. Added to that, COVID research is just emerging, showing that so many people were impacted. Their psychological well-being and mental health issues, but in particular that same group of girls between the young adult females. A study here I thought would be relative to the audience in Switzerland. Similar findings, considerable stress by young adults, especially females, during the first lockdown. And same, we've had numerous lockdowns in different countries, and females really impacted. In Australia, highest level of presentations in hospitals for acute mental health needs for females, significant increase in eating disorders as well. And so I can go on and on with more stats, but I think understanding you're seeing the trend here, the adolescent female, young adult women have their own specific needs that are quite critical at this time. Research in Australia that's looked longitudinally has said, what are the things females say they want assistance with? They're saying we want help being able to cope with stress, and they also want help managing those concerns they have about their appearance. And then, so having programs that target specific needs, and males will have other needs, is important to look at each gender type and say, this is what's going on and this is what we can do to help you. These are your needs. There is though, so this is the aim, to move people towards the healthy state, to be living well, to be mentally fit, healthy, feeling great. That's the optimal state. As I said, it is a continuum, but as much as we can do to make people more resilient and understand their emotions and develop those skills will really benefit if we start from a young age. At the moment, there is a treatment gap. Again, I've used a study from Switzerland, and their results, as I said, reflected those that are being found globally. Young people, though, they really want to solve their own problems. So they are often reluctant to seek treatment. They think they can do it on their own, and often not recognizing the signs that they might need assistance. They might be moving out of the green zone and hitting the orange zone and not getting assistance. And unfortunately, we often see people when they become really unwell. So promoting that, the importance of early intervention. Using a range of approaches would be really beneficial. And at all times, taking in that biopsychosocial model, looking at the unique factors that impact females when coming up with programs to assist. Focusing though, young people are really turning to technology as it's their logical way to learn about mental health and talk about mental health issues. You can see it on TikTok, and you can see the increase in apps. There's been an explosion in mental health apps over the last 2 years. There's 20,000 mental health apps in the market now. But unfortunately, a lot of these researchers have been reviewing the efficacy of many of these apps and finding, look, some are even more damaging than they are useful. Clinical or gimmickal, a lot of them are gimmickal, all the bells and whistles, but they're not evidence-based and they're not going to be assisting people. When young people are choosing the apps, they might look at the scientific language. It sounds like it might be reasonable, but they're not understanding, you know, the effectiveness of an evidence-based program. So education is important as well. And there's definitely an opportunity for people, technology experts, to work with psychologists and other mental health professions to use the evidence and create these really appealing apps for young people that can help them. You can also use technology to learn more about the users. People are used to sharing things online. If there's ethical guidelines are met and privacy is adhered to, actually creating programs that can cater to everyone's individualized needs as well as the wider system. So I see technology being a great bridge, a collaboration between developers, mental health providers to partner together to enhance overall well-being. And it's the bridge between the two. And so I hope you've today's from my presentation. I do want to reiterate, I think mental health is important at every stage of life: childhood, adolescence, late adulthood, for the elderly, for males and females. And as psychologists, that's what we're really about, promoting how to live a positive life, good, optimum mental health. However, today I just wanted to highlight that the trends in young female mental health and well-being. As I said, I think that's a group that really warrants our attention at this point in time. Thank you so much for your attention and for inviting me to present today. Bye-bye.
Thank you for that, Dr. Rossler. That's really interesting findings. Again, I want to remind our viewers that there is a lot of research out there that is being done in research labs and universities, some of them by our own founders who are presenting here today. And I can't stress enough the importance of support, of research funding towards that as well. This is what we're here to increase the conversations. So many different findings and a wide landscape of what is women's health. It just encompassing so many different elements of women's health that we're here to talk to and present to you today. Moving on to our next topic, and kind of a really good segue. In addition to the challenges that startups have in just innovation in general, has to bring innovative solutions to the market, from funding, from market fit, and also scalability, production, etc. On top of that, we have all these aspects we've been talking about today: lack of data, lack of specific data, and also taboo subjects when it comes to women's health. So to learn more about how to push this forward, I'd like to introduce Andrew Tasker, Viveka Biomed CEO, who's going to talk to us about that journey of bringing women's health innovation to the market.
Good morning. I've got seem to have a problem in trying. Has my screen share worked? Good morning.
Yes, it works.
Good morning, and thank you very much for the introduction. I want to talk to you very much on a practical level about bringing the women's health innovation to the marketplace. And I want to share some of our learnings in terms of how we've actually done that over this last 2 years since we launched the product. So in this presentation, I'd like to talk to you about some of the practical perspective of delivering that innovation over the last 2 years in what's been a very obviously interesting environment. And I think one of the key messages: innovation is only of value to the consumer when it's been actually delivered to the market. It's great talking about the theory, but it's the practical perspectives that we need to be looking at here. So one of the key things, again, obviously, from an environmental point of view, in terms of how we've actually needed to set up an innovative environment to actually deliver this in a new corporate perspective, and within that, obviously, very much a compliant environment to the new medical devices directive. I want to talk about how we worked with a new notified body to gain our CE mark, and then very much from a practical perspective, how we've then adopted our offer to meet the needs and very much different female needs in different countries across different healthcare systems. And did somebody mention Europe as a common market? Certainly not from a practical perspective when we've come to market. I want to then discuss in terms of how we've really aligned then our real innovation with commercial needs of the world's leading health and beauty retailer, and very much they're tied together to make all this possible, how we've had to position and deliver that innovation to support both a pre and post-launch fundraise. A short introduction to Viveka Biomed on the company. We're totally focused on female healthcare. Then the business was formed to develop Control Active Guard as a brand, which is a bladder support for stress incontinence, acquiring some of the technology from a Nordic multinational, which we've then continued to develop. We were very fortunate and very grateful to join the Tech4Eva program in March 21. And the key message here is that when we did join it, we were pre-fundraise, we were pre-launch, and very much the company was a development company developing a concept. And one of our key learnings is how we've gone from this stage in March 21 to launch the product in July, and we're now exporting to 8 European countries, with our objective to add 2 other international markets to that during this month. We've set up a new manufacturing environment. We've achieved ISO 13485 and gained a new CE mark for the product in May with a new notified body. We control all aspects of the manufacturing process, from specially molding right through to dispatch to the market, with all components and all elements of the product manufactured here in the UK. We're a privately owned business based in Ashington, about 15 miles north of Newcastle. Perhaps one of the important learnings, if we give you some background on the founders. Myself, I've had a long career in pharmaceuticals, consumer healthcare, and medical devices, and having large corporate experience in Procter & Gamble, Allergan, Bausch & Lomb, Boots, and I was managing director of the Pfizer business in the UK, and then responsibilities. So I did experience some very different and very evolving corporate environments. But I don't think anything can ever prepare you for when you're actually running your own innovative business. Corporates talk customer focus and innovation, but I think the reality of their interpretation of the language is very different from the reality when you're running it, when you're really delivering that innovation at the front end to the end consumer. My co-founder, Alan, has many years in manufacturing. His broader experience outside medical devices did bring many new approaches, and his long experience in the automotive supply industry has been of real benefit to really challenging processes and how we cost effectively implement some high quality systems. One of our, important factors about the business is all our initial setup was funded personally by ourselves. So we were very, very single-minded and very focused on what we needed to do, bringing in one single investor in the very early days of the business. What we've done is created a very much a focused environment and our approach. COVID, of course, was an incredibly challenging time. Just as we were starting to work with our notified body when the issues started to develop, albeit very, very challenging and a very difficult time to set up a new business and a new manufacturing environment. We have certainly had to turn this from a challenge to an opportunity, and how we could ensure that we maintained 100% focused on our end objectives. We've needed to break down barriers, change and learn continually as we've developed the business. We were initially working with a notified body from the Scandinavian markets, and then just over 2 years ago, they decided that they didn't have the resource and time to progress and move forward before the MDR came in place. So we needed to change. We needed to find a new notified body, and we actually agreed a fast-track process to do for the implementation over a 16 to 18 week period. Due to the issues in Italy, that then became initially a 40-week period, and finally a 60-week period. So just before the regulations came in. So we needed to continue to change and find different ways. But I think the overall message, we've had to be incredibly practical and hands-on, and certainly from ourselves as founders, we've needed to ensure that we had the correct skills in place. We've needed to learn continually. There isn't an instruction book to doing this. Everything continues to change, and practical implementation has been the underlying what our learnings have been, and to ensure that we've had continual cost control. We have been lucky in the fact that we do control all elements of the manufacturing process, and we have got a full control of all elements of the go-to-market process. And by integrating our quality process across manufacturing and distribution has ensured that we've been able to meet those timelines. We set up our new distribution and warehouse internally with the brief that we expected to be distributing to 25 markets within the first 12 months. And that's still very much a key part of our objectives. So underlying all this, ensuring that we were appropriately funded in these very cautious times has been important. We took a very strong focus to bring in private investors after initially working with 2 VCs who were really interested in the business, but were extremely time consuming and did risk slowing the process. So we did make that decision to work just with private investors for our initial fundraise, which we completed at the end of March, beginning of April of this year. So ensuring that investors are being continually on board and understanding the business has been key, and ensuring that we have delivered the core milestones has been important. With changes to launch times, which were driven by the delay in the CE mark, we've been highly focused on cash burn, and constant cost control has been absolutely essential. We've needed to accept that having the ideal team and the ideal level of resource is something, for the future. We've had to ensure that we've adapted the team and certainly put in the hours ourselves and within a small team to make this work and to minimize burn. And to continue to communicate the innovation value occasion again remains important. I think in terms of talking to investors and certainly to VCs, Everybody has been far too focused on the value of patents in the past. But the reality in the new European medical device environment, what value does have a patent if you don't have a CE mark and you can't get the product to market? So really stressing in terms of the value of the CE mark and our internal IP has been really, really important. And I think this is going to be a mindset change really across the industry. So let's look at the who is the global female consumer, and I think again one of our key insights and learnings in this is that there are great differences. We might look at at an ideal common consumer, but there are so many cultural differences driven by local factors which drive different behaviours. And in some markets we are dealing with a consumer. In other markets it really is a patient. And their needs, aspiration and expectations are very, very different. And how they interact with healthcare professionals, what are the taboos about some of these delicate issues that we're talking about, need to really be considered. We continue on a weekly basis to capture learnings that we can transfer across geographies. But I think the overriding thing, and I can probably certainly say this being based in the UK, our UK female consumer is very different than the most of Europe, much more cautious and coming from a mindset mainly driven by our NHS, where there is an expectation that anything to do with healthcare should be free at the point of delivery. We've needed to continue to sell our ideas and approach to other stakeholders within the healthcare system. And one of the key examples is working with our National Institute for Healthcare Excellence. And we are delighted to understand that within the next few days, they will now be proactively recommending, as part of the new guidelines that will be issued mid-December, the use of products such as our own. Working with the world's largest health and beauty retailer has been, again, key to delivering the product in the UK. And I think we really knew that we'd achieved our goal when one of their senior executives turned around to us 2 weeks ago and said, we actually believe this is the most important innovation in incontinence in the last 10 years. However, getting there has been, an 18-month program. It's been a need, to accept that it is a long process. There are multiple stakeholders within these organisations that require strong technical and extensive clinical data to be demonstrated. They do expect, just as as probably we would expect of them as a retailer, that they want a high level of proof. And the CE mark is not adequate in itself in demonstrating the product meets their internal quality requirements. And once gone through all their technical requirements and their pharmacy, medical and legal teams, then moving through to gaining the commercial and logistical setup is yet another major exercise for a small company. And after all this is said, the actual end consumer communication does remain the responsibility of the brand. So in summary, bringing women's healthcare innovation to market is certainly complex. Achieving regulatory compliance, gaining the CE mark is very much, I think, the tip of the iceberg. That's probably 5% of the work. We've needed to change our organization very rapidly from being an internal development group in April, May of this year, to being a serious exporter, communicating with customers on a daily basis and having that flexibility to deliver that customer satisfaction so that we can really practically deliver that to women who now call us on a daily, but it's on an hourly or multiple times an hour that we are actually speaking to our end consumers. And providing that resource is really, really important as we continue now to rapidly launch across multiple markets. And again, with the requirements of the medical device regulations, ensuring that we're communicating on packaging does mean that we now have a range of 8 different multilingual packs already with different languages and combinations that deliver that communication. We're continuing to deliver clinical proof and looking at new clinical work with our healthcare intermediaries. But I think the overriding thing, ensuring that we always continue to focus on our single-minded goal of ensuring the relevance of the innovation that we deliver to improving the quality of women's lives is our overriding criteria. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Fantastic presentation, a lot of insights, a lot of take-home messages, bringing corporate experience into the startup, combining knowledge of different sectors, navigating a startup journey through pandemics, all that, wow, while empowering women and helping them to gain confidence with your products. Amazing. And it's now my pleasure to introduce the next part, and here we're going to have the last and final round of startup pitches.
Hi, my name is Edwige and I'm one of the co-founders at Soleil, the first smart platform to boost young women's self-esteem. We are in a self-esteem crisis worldwide, and young women are the most affected, with 70% of them not feeling confident. Well, research has proven that self-esteem is the key pillar to mental health and prevents you from developing mental illness. This is why we launched Soleil, to help young women build self-esteem through 3 pillars: an engaging program, a peer coaching community, and data insights. And the unique combination of these 3 pillars mimics the interaction that you would have with a psychologist, so that you don't need to see one. Soleil is a B2C product that will offer meaningful partnerships in the future. We're a team of 4 co-founders, truly mission-driven with a complementary skill set. So far, we've validated that young women are actively looking for a solution to help them build self-esteem, while nothing is available in the market to help them doing so. Next step is our MVP launch in March. We're starting our pre-seed fundraising and finalizing our board of advisors, so please get in touch if you want to hear more. Thank you.
I'm Andrew Tasker. I'm the CEO and founder of Ivf Biomed, and I'd like to introduce our new product, Control Active Guard, which is a bladder support for women to address stress urinary incontinence. It's inserted into the vagina in a similar way to a tampon, though it works very differently. And the core differential about Control is it's designed to stop leakage. Totally non-invasive, drug-free, and we've got 7 clinical trials that support its efficacy. And women can either use it just during exercise or up to 16 hours a day. As a business, this is a Class 2A medical device. We have got our CE mark, and we actually launched the UK market, and we're already looking to launch into Europe. We secured a listing with Boots. We do believe there's an opportunity for healthcare reimbursement as well, and we've made a UK drug tariff application. It really means that women can get back into exercise and with all the other health benefits of it. Thank you very much.
My name is Lisa, and we brought a team together and developed Pre-Eclampsia. Pre-Eclampsia works if a woman needs to breathe 60 seconds into the device per day, and then the data is transferred via Bluetooth to the Pre-Eclampsia app. She gets her fertility status and her cycle phase displayed in the app. On the one side, you can buy Pre-Eclampsia once, or we have also the renting model, which has recurring revenues. The woman can do so via our own online shop or also via professionals in Austria. We work here with all pharmacies. Additionally, we're also working with insurance groups. So we have several thousand users within the German-speaking area, and we have a 5 times revenue growth over the last year. We are also working on other applications, for example, in the COPD monitoring, as well as you want to go into the sports diagnostics for women in the later stage. So if you are interested, please reach out to me or the team, and thank you.
Hello, this is Katarina from PhysiMed. More than 1 out of 10 women worldwide suffer from urinary leaks, most of them being younger than the age of 55. The pelvic floor maintains, like a hammock, the genital organs. It is important for women to train their pelvic floor all over their life to improve bladder control and to stop and prevent incontinence or organ descending. EMI provides a suitable solution to strengthen the pelvic floor at home. It consists of an intravaginal device connected to a smart mobile application. Kegel exercises are all based on therapeutic training schemes, an innovative biofeedback technology that was developed and patented by PhysiMed. The device is classified as a medical device class 1 and meets highest medical quality standards. We sell Emmy in all countries within Europe, in different countries in Asia, and also in North America. Please reach out to me or with our CEO, Emmeline Hahn, via LinkedIn.
Bio developed a small, smart, and disposable vaginal platform that is used like a tampon with an applicator. But it functions like a menstrual cup where it collects any vaginal secretion for 12 hours. These liquids are then used for monitoring and screening of women's health based on biomarkers available within that fluids. Bio first device, Tulipon, is superior hygiene device that for the first time ever enables users to monitor the volume of their blood loss, which is also another indication of health. Tulipon is fully operational after being tested for more than a year as part of a post-market study. The next step is to be transferred to a mass productions and sell. Thank you.
Vaginitis is the most common gynecologic problem encountered by primary care providers for women. However, it is misdiagnosed in 50% of first clinic visits. GynTools provides Genie, the first and only accurate, rapid, and cost-effective point-of-care diagnostic system that is based on machine learning and AI. Genie is addressing a multi-billion blue ocean market. We already started marketing activities in Israel and Switzerland. We are seeking an investment partner in our A round. My name is Nimrod Lev, co-founder and CEO, and I'll be happy to set a Zoom call and elaborate. Thank you.
Thank you to all the pitches, and obviously thank you to all the presenters as well for their scientific topics. Before we close, we'd like to hear some of the next steps from our program director, Lan, on what is coming up next for Tech4Eva.
Thank you. So, dear partner, dear startups, and dear everyone online with us this morning, it has been a fantastic moment and very inspiring conference. We would like to ask you to stay with us and to grow this FemTech opportunities. And also this morning show that there are fantastic challenges and also opportunities for you to develop further the new solutions to work for the cause of the woman. I would like to thank, first of all our speakers for your great contribution to this conference. And I'm sure that insight you have bring into the conference will encourage more and more people to look into this topic and to develop new innovations. To the Tech4Eva startups, I would like to congratulate all of you for the great progress you have made during the program. And also would like to sincerely thank you for your trust, for your contribution, and for your insight, for the constructive feedback you have been giving to us. Now the Accelerator program is ending today, but we invite you to stay with us and keep in contact to stay within our communities. Now, to everyone who is currently connecting with you, we would invite you to spread the word about Tech4Eva, as we are launching a call for next edition of Tech4Eva. So if you are a tech-driven startups working in innovative solutions in the area of prevention and well-being, in the area of pregnancy, and menopause, and also all the health issues, female-related oncology and autoimmune and heart diseases, you're all welcome to apply. So whenever you are early stage startups or growth phase companies, you are all eligible to apply, and all the gender and nationalities are welcome. We're also looking for more investment. So if you are governmental agencies, university staff, office, also you are business angels, VCs, corporate VCs, if you would like to provide your financial support or invest in this very promising asset class, you're welcome to contact us, and we're happy to team up with you to develop new instruments. We also call for partnership to develop other activities, such as more FemTech-focused clinic validations, and also to organize other international roadshows in other countries. We are also calling for mentors. So if you are seasoned professionals in life science, medical device, healthcare, insurance, and you are well-versed FemTech startup founders and investment professionals, if you would willing to give your time, please contact us. So here is the QR code for those who would apply for the second round of Tech4Eva Accelerator program. And for those of you who would like to invest, to bring fundings, or would like to be a partner or mentor of this program, please write to the email address tech4eva@EPFL innovationpark.ch. So thank you all, and see you very soon.
Thank you, Lan. We apologize for technical difficulties today. Again, if you missed any part of the event, you can go back on the platform and watch it on replay. We also encourage you to follow us on LinkedIn. You can find all the latest information about Tech4Eva on our website, tech4eva.ch. Yeah, I guess thank you all, startups, mentors, corporates, investors, FemTech enthusiasts for joining us today. We had hundreds of people joining us from all over the world, and I'm so proud that so many of you care about women's health. I encourage you to join us this afternoon at Swiss Accelerator Showcase, where we will have pitches from some Tech4Eva startups again. Let's continue the dialogue, because only by bringing everyone together we can advance women's health. And we will see you on March 31st for the kickoff of Tech4Eva 2022.
And before we leave, please, if you're still here with us, take your faces, beautiful faces, on the camera. We would love to take a quick picture. As you have spent a wonderful morning with us, we really appreciate for your time being with us today. Hope you learned a lot. Hope you got connected, and hope that also you're able to make some inferences on some research that could be advanced and ways to support these startups as well as this growing sector. So at 1:30, we join you to come to the Swiss Accelerator Showcase this afternoon. It's starting at 1:30. You can log in now to the platform. All of the startups that you saw pitching, plus another 30 or so across different accelerator programs, not necessarily related to FemTech, other sectors as well, have a virtual booth where you can now start scheduling one-on-one time meetings, or you just explore their more information, meet with them virtually, schedule a time in the future. We will have an afternoon program with two amazing rising stars of a Swiss ecosystem, both CEOs of Lapse and Condu, some very deep tech technologies and the journeys of their from research to market. But thank you all so much, and we have wonderful faces here that we've taken a photo, so thanks for joining us, and thank you so much for your time. Have a great afternoon, and hopefully see you this afternoon as well.
Thank you. Stay safe. Happy holidays.
Thank you.